Hello and welcome to another Royal Reviewer live stream chat, and I hope that this one is actually working because I had to abort one and start again. Oh, we can't see Brenda, can we? Brenda is the swan in the background. There you go, I hope you can see her a little bit better now, and I hope you can still hear me if I move it back. Right, so today is the 10th of May 2022 and we have had the state opening of Parliament, and I normally comment on the state opening of Parliament. State opening of Parliament is something that happens most years, and I'll get into a moment about what it actually is, because some of you may not know if you are not from the UK. Some of you may not know if you are even from the UK, but it happens most years, and it's something that I have always watched on TV from a small child. It's something that I've always looked forward to. It's the sort of occasion that I really wanted to skip school for, so I could be at home and watch it live. It was that kind of, really nice big royal moment in the year. It's one of those set piece pomp and ceremony events. And of course, the Queen has attended pretty much all of them. I think she's only missed 3 in her reign, and that was due to pregnancy. And obviously sometimes state openings haven't happened, sometimes they've run over the year, sometimes they've been stripped back, for example, with the sea that happened over the past couple of years. So yeah, we've had kind of different state opening of parliaments, but we have not had any major changes like what we have seen today. Today has been really historic, and we have seen basically a big, massive sea change. Hello, I can see everybody coming back in, so I'm hoping you've all got the notifications. So, I'm going to go to the official royal.co.uk website and read to you what they describe as the state opening of Parliament. And it's I'll read it and then I'll comment on it. So the state opening of Parliament. The Queen officially opens Parliament with an event steeped in tradition. And if you've seen it, you will have seen all the pomp and circumstance. The state opening, and this is the key bit, is the only regular event to unite the 3 elements of legislature, the House of Lords, the House of Commons, and the Queen. And of course, the Queen being head of state, together as the crown in Parliament. So it's the only set-piece event of the whole year that brings everything together. And it basically is a ceremony that renews everything. It renews our parliamentary and constitutional monarchy system of government. So usually the Queen would head to Parliament in a state coach, or a car on some occasions perhaps. Well, maybe for the Queen's comfort, perhaps a car if she does attend in future. She may not, and we'll talk about that in a moment. And then normally she would ascend the steps, and she'd wear her kind of ceremonial white robes, white dress, I should say, and then she'd change into her robe, she'd put on the Imperial state crown, she'd read the speech, and then she would be on her way. Of course, this is different because the Queen has had mobility issues. If you watched yesterday's video, I will have discussed all of that. But the Queen basically decided yesterday that she was going to take her doctor's orders and not attend because she's having episodic mobility issues, which means she has good days, she has bad days. Obviously today, or yesterday and today, were not days that she was able to attend. So she issued letters patent, which were kind of passed by Parliament, to basically say that 2 councillors of state, Prince Charles and Prince William, could represent her and deliver the speech that she would normally do. Now, yesterday it wasn't clear whether this was a permanent thing, or whether it was just for this occasion. It turns out it was just for this occasion. So we could see the Queen back at Parliament delivering the speech in future state openings. However, I kind of have my own personal doubts about this. I do think this is something that could happen again, maybe next year, maybe going forwards forever. We really don't know. It will depend upon the Queen's health this time, whenever the state opening happens next time. Like I said, it's not always exactly on the ear. So I personally think, and it's my opinion, that this is what we will see going forwards, and it's probably something that the Queen will issue the day before going forward. So I think this is basically going to be the state opening of Parliament going forwards. I want to talk a little bit again about what we actually saw. So we saw the regalia. So the regalia is, of course, the imperial state crown. It is the sword of state. It is the mace. It is the cap of maintenance. And if you saw the cap with like the big kind of ermine kind of trim on it, well, it wasn't ermine. It was like a white. It could be ermine. It could just be a white ermine. And that is kind of an unofficial kind of state emblem. It became a state emblem. The cap of maintenance was traditionally given to a favoured monarch by the Pope. So, of course, Henry VIII famously fell out with the Pope and obviously broke the United Kingdom or England away from the Church of, well, the Roman and Catholic faith, and formed the Church of England. So the cap of maintenance was kind of kept as a symbol, so it's still carried on a stick today. The imperial state crown, I should tell you a little bit about the imperial state crown. So it actually dates from 1937. Of course, it uses stones, it uses gemstones, diamonds, you know, all different gemstones that have been used in previous crowns. So you could say that it has a much older history than 1937, but this present form was created in 1937, and it does consist of gold, platinum, silver, diamonds, rubies, emeralds, sapphires, spinels, pearls, velvet, ermine. It weighs a really, really great weight. And that's one of the reasons why the Queen stopped wearing it a few years ago to the state opening of Parliament, which is why it's carried now on a cushion. She did used to wear it, but it's really, really heavy. In fact, I think it's probably got its weight somewhere. I mean, there are 2,868 diamonds alone on the crown, and of course there are some notable gemstones. So it was made in 1937 for King George VI. It contains the St Edward's sapphire, which carries the legend that Edward the Confessor, or St Edward, one of the last Anglo-Saxon kings of England, was asked for alms by a beggar. Then there are said to be Queen Elizabeth I's earrings. The 4 large pearls have become associated with the 7 pearls that Catherine de' Medici received from Pope Clement VII on her marriage. So the pearls on the top could be from Queen Elizabeth. There is the Black Prince's ruby, which is actually a large spinel, which was traditionally thought to have been the ruby given to Edward the Prince of Wales, son of Edward III, known as the Black Prince. There is the Stuart sapphire. There is the Cullinan II, or the Second Star of Africa diamond. So it's a very important crown. So we saw the arrival of the regalia. That arrived by car. It left Buckingham Palace, so that is normal. There was no change there. But the second change was about 5 minutes later. Prince William arrived. So he, I think he actually had his car. He arrived by car from Kensington Palace, where he is currently staying at the moment, in London, and he was wearing kind of morning dress. He had a morning coat on. So that was one of the changes this time as well. There were no tiaras. So sorry to disappoint. Yesterday we were thinking, well, I was hoping maybe there would be tiaras, maybe there would be the white dresses, maybe we would see the ceremonial robe. No, we had a very much kind of stripped, well, kind of a semi-stripped down. So William, as a Councillor of State, was in. By the way, it requires 2 Councillors of State to do this on behalf of the Queen, Charles and William. So William was there in morning dress. He made his way up into the robing room, where the Queen would normally put on the imperial state crown, having arrived in the diadem, and she would normally wear a white fur, and then she'd change into the robe, into the nice red ruby robe, and then she'd make her way to her throne to read the speech. So William kind of waited. Then we saw the arrival of Charles and Camilla. Camilla was wearing a day dress. Prince Charles was wearing a ceremonial uniform. I think it was Admiral of the Fleet. Someone correct me if I'm wrong. I'm sure it was the Admiral of the Fleet. So he arrived. He was kind of dressed up. I think that may be what he may wear when he's king. We'll have to wait and see. So we had the heralds, we had the trumpeters lining the way. Of course, he made his way up the stairs. The Queen in recent years has been using a lift for mobility. So he made his way into the robing room, where we waited a few moments, where some ceremonial set-piece events happened, like, for example, Black Rod. And, you know, lots of people were kind of questioning on social media, what is Black Rod? Black Rod is actually, the position is taken at the moment by a lady, Sarah Clark. She was wearing black, she carried a stick, a black rod, literally a rod that is black. It's not very creative, inventive names, is it, people? So she represents the House of Lords. If you don't know, the UK Parliament is split into the House of Commons, the MPs, the elected body, and the House of Lords, which are they cross-examine and check all the laws being passed, and then they throw them back. Anyway, so basically, Black Rod is from the House of Lords. She goes on the command, obviously, of Charles. So Charles arrived, sat on the throne, and said, "My lords, pray be seated," which is what the Queen always says. Black Rod goes off to the House of Commons, where the MPs are. The door is slammed in her face. And this is symbolic, because when Charles I kind of broke into Parliament and demanded things, ever since then, the door has been shut. So it's to symbolise the independence from the crown of our Parliament, basically. So anyway, the door's opened after she bangs 3 times on the door. You can actually see, I've actually been there, and you can see the door has got all the dents where after years and years of banging the rod 3 times. She goes in, she requests, and this is where one fundamental change happens. Normally, it would be Her Majesty requests your presence in the chamber. But this time, it was the words were along the lines of the councillors of state request your presence in the chamber. So of course that was one very important change, because it wasn't the Queen actually there. Anyway, having slightly ignored, as is the custom, Black Rod on the way in, the MPs slowly make their way into the chamber, where Charles carried on with the speech. The speech was delivered from a big kind of velvet purse that was offered. I think Dominic Raab was in the role this year. Offered to Charles. Charles began reading, and of course the speech is not from Her Majesty, even though she reads it. It is actually from the government of the day, which is a current Conservative government. So he reads what their programme of wants to do is, so to speak. So a little bit of a difference about how they were seated. So we had Camilla to Charles's left. We had Charles, who was seated in the consort's throne, and the Queen's throne was absent, with the imperial state crown on a cushion in front of it, and William was to Charles's right. Now I did make a few observations. Charles initially kind of stared quite a lot at the imperial state crown. It's hard to tell what was going through his mind at that moment. He has waited. You know, he is the longest standing Prince of Wales, king in waiting ever that has happened. And finally, he gets to do pretty much a kingly duty. This is what he has been trained for his whole life. And I don't know what was going through his mind, because finally he may have kind of had a bit of a taste of, one day my mom isn't going to be here, the Queen is not going to be here. And he was almost looking at the crown, I think, almost like it was his mother. And he looked like he was in very deep contemplation. So let me know what you think Prince Charles was thinking, because it's hard to know, but I think he was looking quite kind of pensively and quite poignantly at the crown. And then he carried on his speech, and he delivered it so well. There were absolutely no mistakes. It was flawless. He delivered it well. He really didn't look out of place doing it. Camilla also looked amazing. She was smiling the whole way through. So whenever you looked over and glanced at Camilla, she was smiling. William, I think he looked a little bit awkward. He did look a little awkward, I have to say. But then again, this is the first time that he has been there. He and Catherine haven't been there previously. Back in the day, when Charles was married to Diana, they attended. Of course, Charles and Camilla have attended, I think, since 2016 together. I think it was then. So Camilla's had a lot of practice. Charles has had a great deal of practice. The Queen has had the most practice. But William, I think, needs to kind of get into it. He needs to become a bit more comfortable with it, I think. That will come in time. But he certainly didn't let anyone down. He was there. He was present. He fulfilled his role as a king in waiting, because of course for him, he must be thinking, oh my goodness, one day that will be me. That will be my job. I will be there reading. And it could be, George who's following behind me and Catherine. So Catherine didn't go. I was wondering yesterday whether or not she would, whether it would be a foursome with Charles and Camilla and William and Catherine, but of course that didn't happen, so we didn't get to see her. And of course William and Catherine did have an engagement later on in the day, so it was a very, very busy day for William. Now, did I mention, I wrote down different things that I noticed, and I don't think I noticed anything else that was different. The departures were pretty much the same. So once the speech has been read, everyone departs. So William and Charles and Camilla make their way back into the robing room for a very, very short time, where normally the robe would be taken off, but there were no robes. Then Charles kind of came out, he spoke to a few people on the way, made some small talk, and then he and Camilla left via car. And of course, the national anthem was played, God Save the Queen. William left pretty much straight away, so he was still leaving as the national anthem was ending, had come to a finish. And then, of course, all the regalia make their way back. Now, of course, the regalia left Buckingham Palace. They are in the charge of the royal jeweller, but they make their way back to where they are kept, which is the Tower of London. And of course, if you're in London, if they're not in use, you can go and you can pay at the Tower of London to see the regalia, to see the crown jewels. They are part of the national collection. They do not belong to the Queen necessarily. They are held kind of in trust. They are the nation. So if you pay, you can go and see them. I've been there. I've seen them. They look amazing. So yeah, if you're ever in London, go to the Tower of London, pay the money and see the crown jewels, because they are spectacular. And the Imperial State Crown really does sparkle. It's in a glass case in the Tower of London. They have lights shining on it. It is spectacular. So if you are in London, do make sure you go. Right. Do you have any questions? Because I know lots of you have been talking, but I kind of wanted to. Lauren says, a question on the opening. Do we know why the Duke of Cambridge attended, not just Charles and Camilla? Yes, I've answered that. It's because 2 councillors of state are required. Charles is one, William is the other. Let's see if there's a question. Stephanie, hello, says, it was really unexpectedly thrilling to see Prince Charles on the throne. The future is here. Queen Elizabeth deserves some rest. She does. She's 96. I mean, to be fair, Charles is 73. I mean, he's no spring chicken, but he's much, he's able-bodied. And the Queen does need some rest. She is having these episodic mobility issues. So she'll take it day by day. Sterling says, I'm guessing optics are also playing a part, but why not show Her Majesty being wheeled about? Now, I spoke about this a little bit yesterday, and I'll say it again. Now, personally, I spent 10 years in a previous job working with young people who have life-threatening conditions, are wheelchair users, have disabilities. There is absolutely no shame whatsoever in being seen in a wheelchair. But I think this runs a little bit deeper for the Queen herself. Lots of royal commentators have kind of come up with the Princess Margaret situation. So Princess Margaret, shortly before she passed away, was wheeled out at the Queen Mother's birthday celebrations at the kind of what was known as the birthday gates at Clarence House. One of her assistants, it wasn't planned, one of her assistants wheeled her out in her wheelchair. And if you look at that photo, I think it's one of the last photos of Princess Margaret that was ever taken of her in public, she didn't look very well. And I think the Queen just has it in her head that she, if anything happens to her, that she doesn't want to be remembered that way. So I don't think it's anything to do with, you know, being disabled or needing to be a wheelchair user or a mobility scooter user or a golf cart user. I think it's purely that she's got it in her head that she doesn't want to be seen the same way as Princess Margaret, looking ill. So I think it's a very personal thing for the Queen, but I don't think it's any slight on people who are wheelchair users, because there is no shame in being a wheelchair user. Phineas says, did anyone note Charles staring at the crown? Yes, absolutely. I've just spoken about that. Camilla looked awesome. She did indeed. She always wears beautiful hats. I love Camilla's hats. I really, really do. I'm scrolling down the comments trying to pick one. Queen of Kingsby said, I was a little teary-eyed when Charles said, my lords, pray be seated. Yes, and oh yes, another change was, of course, he didn't read the speech. The wording, he did read the speech. The wording was changed, though. Normally it would be my government. The Queen would say, my government, my government. Charles read Her Majesty's government, Her Majesty's government. So that was changed, and that was changed at the last minute to suit the new circumstances. Helene's Home says, I do remember the Princess Margaret moment and understand why. Yes, I just think it's in the Queen's head that she doesn't want that. She doesn't want that to be her lasting memory. Chris says it may be the solemn ceremony or a solemn ceremony, but I thought Prince Charles was moving slowly. No, they have to pace themselves when they walk. I don't think he was moving slowly. It is, like you said, it is a very solemn ceremony. You don't want to walk really, really quickly from the robing room and by the way, I've been to all those rooms. I've actually been in the room where they disappear. You know, the door where they close and the Queen gets robed. I've actually been there. I couldn't take photos or anything, but I have actually been there. I've walked the ceremonial route. I've been in the chamber. I've stared at the throne, and it really is magnificent. Lauren says, not to be morbid. I think it's going to be morbid, isn't it? But I think this is something they may need to address in the fact that any future king or queen we know is likely to be up there in age. Yes, well, obviously, you know, Charles is 73 already, so he's not going to be any younger when he takes the throne. William is likely to be in his 60s, possibly 70s, by the time he takes the throne. It's because the Queen ascended to the throne so early, upon the death of her father, who died early, that we've had basically a young monarch all the way through to old age. So no, I don't think we are going to have a young monarch for a very, very long time. Why wasn't William in a uniform? I don't know why he wasn't, because this is not typical. Literally anything could have happened. Yesterday, in my live chat, if you go back, we kind of speculated on the possibilities of everything, the seating, who would be there, what clothes might be worn. So I'm not entirely clear as to why William wasn't in a uniform. He was in morning dress, but you know, I'm not even entirely sure why Camilla wasn't in what she would normally wear when she was attending with the Queen and Charles. She would normally wear a kind of white dress, you know, and she was in day dress as well. So I think it was basically that the focus was kind of on Charles. That may be the only reason that I can possibly think of or speculate on for that. But in terms of do we actually know why? No, we don't. Not at the moment. Angie says, I felt for Charles and Diana both. I can't imagine being in love with someone but forced to marry someone else. Oh, you mean Charles and Camilla? Yeah, but with Diana in the situation. I agree. Lisa says, wasn't the opening of Parliament in November at one time? Sometimes they can be later depending upon what's going on. So yeah, they can be slightly different times. Oh, Queen of Kingsbury said, I asked because William looks great in a uniform. He does. Most people look great in a uniform, to be honest. Okay, so I think I've spoken about most of what all of what I wanted to say. So I'm going to give you a chance to ask any questions that you think I haven't answered or anything you want to know. Other than that, I just want to say that I think it went really well. I think it was probably the right decision for the Queen to make in the current situation. I think this situation will be under review for next year. If the Queen is in the same way with mobility issues, we may see an exact repeat of this the next time we have a state opening of Parliament. But I think it went really, really well. It went without a hitch, very, very smooth. And I think we have to, congratulate all of those involved in the planning. The Duke of Norfolk, you may have seen him. The Duke of Norfolk was actually is kind of it's traditional that he has kind of control and planning over all the kind of royal ceremonies, so to speak. He did a really, really good job, as he always does. Sir Welch says, do I have any plans for the 1000th anniversary of monarchy? The monarchy reached its 1000th anniversary in 2080. Well, I'll be very old in 2080. I will be about 97 if I'm lucky enough to get there. Lisa says, have the Spencers said anything about Harry? As far as I'm aware, the Spencers are the soul of discretion when it comes to royal matters. Something that was perhaps not inherited down the generations. Queen of Kings said, William looked as if he didn't sleep. Maybe he didn't. Maybe he was worried. I mean, it's a big thing. Okay, I'm going to go now. So if you've enjoyed this video, by the way, please share it. Share the video on social media. The more people get to see it, the more YouTube recommend it to people. And of course, I always talk the facts. I'm not talking a load of rubbish. This is stuff that actually happened on the day. This is the truth. This is the real stuff. It's not a load of waffle. So if you have enjoyed this video and you found it useful and you've learned something, please do share it. It really does help. Facebook, Instagram, whatever it is, push it out there and then more and more people will see it. Also, if you haven't already, do subscribe. It does help the channel to grow. And if you want to see more, or if you want me to tell you more things, leave a comment and let me know exactly what you want to know. So I hope you all have a fantastic evening. So from me, to you all, and goodbye.